Hey, what is up, gang? Thank you for checking out Sledgehammer TV tonight. You know, outside of the Universal Championship situation on SmackDown, there really is not much going on this show. It's kind of business as usual. But the one positive takeaway is that there was some really great in-ring action that made tonight's episode of SmackDown quite entertaining, but there always are a few obvious exceptions to it, and we are going to talk about all of that and so much more as we go over everything wrong with tonight's episode of SmackDown right here and right now. My name is Nick Nightmare. You are watching the Sledgehammer Wrestling Show SmackDown Review and Reaction Show. Let's do it.
Sledgehammer Wrestling Show.
Tonight on SmackDown, they did a lot to build towards next week's episode, making next week even bigger than you could imagine for a regular SmackDown. But tonight was all about Roman Reigns and his Universal Championship, all of the people that want it, mainly Daniel Bryan, and the continued push of Cesaro towards the big dog, towards the tribal chief. And I've enjoyed everything that they did with that segment tonight. They were smart about it in a way. They gave the show that as its priority. It absolutely dominated this show as far as the stories that they were telling, taking up more than half of tonight's episode of SmackDown, and I was completely alright with it because it is by far the most entertaining and interesting thing that they are doing at all. Cesaro is determined to get his shot against Roman Reigns, so he came out tonight to call out the tribal chief and challenge him, but before he could even get a word out, of course, that's running, Dad, to come out and spoil everybody's fun. He is taking credit for Cesaro's sudden rise in stardom. If it wasn't for his match with Cesaro at WrestleMania, Cesaro wouldn't be where he is, and he didn't even get so much as a thank you. This, for some reason, prompted Jey Uso to come out. Jey Uso wants to get in on the beat down on Cesaro party, and the two gentlemen come to some sort of an agreement that they're going to work together. They surrounded the ring like a couple of sharks smelling blood in the water as Cesaro stood in the middle of the ring all by himself, when suddenly the yes man himself, Daniel Bryan, comes out to even the odds. I thought this was interesting because all of a sudden Daniel Bryan became like the best hype man in the world for Cesaro, which was great. He was very condescending to the Universal Champion. He was talking about how Cesaro works harder than Seth Rollins. He's worked harder than Jey Uso. He even thinks he's worked harder than Roman Reigns, and he definitely deserves a shot at the Universal Championship. He also started to think that Roman Reigns is probably going to come out. They're going to all join together and try to beat them down, but he would be honored to take on even 3 men versus 2 as long as he's standing next to a guy like Cesaro. This was all really great. And then, of course, Roman Reigns did come out. He called these guys a couple of losers. He said, Daniel Bryan, you're a stupid loser. You're a WrestleMania main event loser. You're a couple of main event losers. Cesaro, he equated to being like a casino loser, I guess, meaning that he just doesn't know when to quit and he's never going to come out on top because you just waste all your time going after something you know you're not going to get. In this case, it would be the Universal Championship. And I love the way Roman is just sort of brushing Cesaro to the side as if he's nobody at all. And you could see that this is angering Cesaro more and more every time it happens. And I didn't think this was going to lead to anything involving Cesaro and Roman Reigns on this night. But they are obviously building towards that. But by the end of the show, we are going to take a right turn that I didn't see coming. But I kind of appreciate, because if we're going to go down this road with Cesaro, we want it to take some time. We want it to build some momentum, and we want a good story to be told. And it seems to be going in that direction, even though Daniel Bryan is involved as well. Now, some of the stuff that Roman says is the same things he always says. It can come off as a little repetitive at times. There was no appearance at all by Edge on this show, so it seems as if they are sticking with this as the primary angle for the Universal Championship. And I was okay with it. I was okay with it. This ended up with Seth Rollins and Jey Uso not main eventing the show, not closing the show in a match later, but in a tag team match that would kick off the show. That was actually really great. And how could it not be when you're looking at the amount of talent in the ring with a Daniel Bryan, Cesaro, Seth Rollins, and Jey Uso, 4 of the top guys in the WWE right now. They all can go, and they obviously had a great time out there because they put on a hell of a match. The only thing I don't like, which is going to kind of be a theme of the evening, is the way that they ended this match, because they're doing this thing lately where they just keep having people just walk out on matches, as if having a match and trying to get a win is not important. And Seth Rollins playing the weaselly heel part, walking out on Jey Uso, leaving him to fend for himself against Daniel Bryan and Cesaro, and effectively quitting, walking out going, "I don't deserve this. I'm Seth freaking Rollins." And I just don't, I hate that. They did it with the women a couple of weeks ago when they walked out on the tag team championship opportunity and they backed away from Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler. We'll talk about that. And it's just something that they've been doing. They did it with Sami Zayn. He was going to walk out on his match with Kevin Owens last week. And it's just, I hate that. I hate that. It's just a cheap way to get out of, what, does Seth Rollins think he doesn't get the loss even though he walked away? Your name still goes in the books as part of the losing team, so what did you accomplish? It's just a foolish booking to the end of the match, and you would think that this would piss off Jey Uso, but Jey Uso is still so mad at Cesaro that he doesn't really care that Seth Rollins walked out on him. So, despite the fact of that lapse in logic, this was a really fun tag team match. These guys killed it, and this is the reason why we watch pro wrestling. It's a good story surrounding the match. The matches themselves are going off like gangbusters, and it was really, really great. Made even better post-match. When Daniel Bryan, it might seem a little weird because it's almost as if he was taunting Roman Reigns, but he was daring Roman to come out and confront them and give Cesaro the answer that he deserves, and they kind of assaulted Jey Uso. And Cesaro would give him the Cesaro swing multiple times. Daniel Bryan asking him to do it again because he guarantees Roman Reigns is scared and he's not even going to come out and help his cousin. He's supposed to be a family man, but he's not even going to come out and help his cousin, which was exactly what happened. He let Jey Uso take the brunt of the assault there. He didn't come out to help anybody, and Daniel Bryan is wondering just how scared Roman Reigns is, and he knows that Cesaro is going to be the next Universal Champion because he truly believes, Daniel believes, even Roman knows that he can't beat this version of Cesaro. I'm into it. And this took a big chunk out of the first hour of the show, and I'm grateful because then with everything that's just coming up in the middle of the show, there's some fun spots and there's some good moments, but for the most part, this was just the same old sucked down stuff that we're used to getting. And what do you mean by that, you might say? Well, we go to the back where we have the GM who's not actually the GM, but is actually the GM of every show in the WWE, Adam Pearce, talking to Sonya Deville. There seems to be some tension there, but they're not really showing all too much yet. If it's just a small tease every week, you could see that there's something not quite cohesive in this duo. I don't know what Sonya's position actually is. Is she trying to get rid of Adam Pearce? Is she going to be the new GM who's not the GM but is actually the GM of just SmackDown? I don't know, but you can see that there's something going on there tonight. They get confronted by Apollo Crews and Commander Aziz, who I guess has adopted the Nigerian accent as well. Commander Aziz Yabba Dabba Dabba Kato that was supposed to forget all about who he was and just accept who he is. Now, Apollo Crews is furious that he has to have a title defense tonight. Now, I automatically assumed this was going to be the rematch that we don't get anymore in the WWE. There's no more guaranteed rematches, but you know Big E is going to get his rematch, especially with the way the match ended in controversy. But that's not what they're doing here. They're going to have Apollo Crews defend tonight against Kevin Owens. Why? Not that I have a problem with Kevin Owens. Look, I'm wearing the man's hat. I'm a huge fan of Kevin Owens, but I would really appreciate the WWE taking a little bit of time to establish contenders with logic. You know, obviously Big E's going to get his rematch, but why would Kevin Owens just on a random SmackDown be given an Intercontinental Championship opportunity? Was that a caveat of him beating Sami Zayn at WrestleMania? Was that a reward because he had to work a segment with Jake Paul? Why is he getting an Intercontinental title shot? This obviously angered Big E as well, and we'll get to that in just a minute, because you want to talk about the down parts of the show, you can't go any further than when we get into women's tag team division stuff. One of the things that is hurting the women's tag team division is, sure, it's okay to float the belts between shows, but we don't have to have them on every show. Why is it every week there's a segment for them on Raw and a segment for them on SmackDown? It should be one show or the other, not both. Because essentially on both shows, all we are getting is the same segment, but with the respective teams that are on those brands. Monday nights, what do we see? Nia Jax and Baszler versus Dana Brooke and Mandy Rose. And then we come to SmackDown, and what do we get? We're not getting them against the Riot Squad. Again, we're not getting them against some new team of women, which there couldn't be because they don't have enough women to have any more teams anyway. But we get Tamina versus Nia Jax. And we get the same old shit that we saw leading in to WrestleMania. But why is this happening? Well, because there's nothing else for them to do. So they just keep repeating the same shit over and over. This was short, but it was boring to me, and it was one of the 2 times on this night that we were going to have a outside interference have something to do with the outcome of the match. The distraction / roll-up finish in this scenario, all due to Reginald. Reginald is back, everybody. He went over to Seth Rollins and he's like, hey, Seth, do you have a real crazy suit that I could borrow that you haven't worn yet, that you don't really want to wear in the future? And Seth went and got the worst suit out of all of his terrible suits and gave it to Reginald. So we usually tell this to Seth Rollins, but today we are going to tell Reginald,
burn it. You should burn the jacket.
It was such an awful suit. He deserves that. And not only does he deserve the Moss burn that suit clip, he deserves a poop hammer of epic proportions. Just simply for returning. I thought we were done with this Reginald crap, but I guess they need a reason for Nia Jax to become distracted. And what would be more distracting than a little flippy dude in a crazy looking suit on the outside? This obviously annoyed Shayna Baszler that he was getting involved in the match. She turned her back to the ring. She ends up getting hit. She blames it on Reginald. This is what Nia Jax is watching while she's in the ring with Tamina, and she gets rolled up and Tamina gets a win. So now, once again, we're in the same scenario where the tag team champions are going to lose in singles matches and in non-title matches, but when we get to the championship match at the pay-per-view, I'm sure they're going to win and get it all back. That's just the round and round we go with the women's championships. Which brand do we stop on? Nobody knows, and you know what? Nobody cares either. Especially not me. Then we go to Kayla Braxton in the back. She's talking to Kevin Owens, who's really excited about his title shot against Apollo Crews, but he gets interrupted by the former champion, Big E. And this was really great because both of these guys are super entertaining. They were playing off each other, both pretending to be friendly and chummy and laughing and talking. Big E's talking about how that's his title, and how does Kevin Owens just jump the line like he should be next? And then Kevin Owens is just like, well, bro, I don't care. And you know what? It's funny because after tonight, that title's gonna be mine. And then just walked off. But their delivery was great. Their chemistry together was great. And I was almost rooting for Kevin Owens to beat Apollo Crews tonight for the championship, as ridiculous as it is that he even is getting the opportunity with no reasoning put behind it whatsoever, only to see Big E versus Kevin Owens in the future. And if they're planting those seeds at some here, then that's just fine. But what we ended up getting is Apollo Crews defeating Kevin Owens, retaining the Intercontinental Championship, because he too, just like Nia Jax, was distracted by Commander Yabba Dabba Dooza and got rolled up by Apollo Crews. He didn't lose because Sami Zayn interfered when he came down to join commentary for some reason. He didn't lose from being definitively pinned by the champion. Yabba Dabba Dooza didn't even get involved in the match. He just jumped up. Kevin Owens had his attention taken for 2 seconds, and despite all the damage he did to Crews, and despite how great the match was going, it ended with the same ridiculous finish that they gave to the women's tag team division, which I did not appreciate. After the match, Kevin Owens gets hit with the Nigerian nail, which is what they are now calling the resurrected move from the Umaga collection. Remember when we had Umaga? Rest in peace. God rest his soul. I loved that character. I thought it was great. And he used to hit people with the Samoan spike. He did the same thing, the whole blah with the tongue out, and then pulled the arm out, and then jabbed the thumb into the throat. And that was usually the 1, 2, 3, and Umaga would get the win. They gave this to Yabba Dabba Dooza, Commander Aziz, and yeah, so going forward, they brought this finishing move out from the annals of time. They gave it to this guy. What do you guys think? Let me know what you think of the Nigerian nail. Could they have come up with a better name for it, maybe? Not something that's pretty much the same exact thing as the Samoan spike, but all they did was change the location. What's really the difference between a spike and a nail? I don't know. Maybe I'm being too picky. It was meh, whatever. We'll see what it is. If we're going into a feud maybe with Aziz and Kevin Owens, see, that's what I'm talking about. Like, at the very least, as the champion, he should be like, no, before you could fight me, you got to get through my commander, my general, this guy. And if you can hang with him, you can have a shot at me. And I know you're not going to want to beat Yabba Dabba Dooza, but that's when you do the crazy bookings and get around it while still making him look strong. Maybe he gets himself disqualified from being too maniacal, for being too vicious, which gives the win to Owens, which gives the shot at the title. Be creative. Do something different. But no, it's just random championship match. Screwy ending, so the championships don't change hands. And that's that. After the match, also, Kevin Owens, before he got attacked by that Nigerian nail, he got a stunner in on Kevin Owens. And before this match would be over, as Kevin Owens laid on the floor following the attack by Yabba Dabba Dooza, Sami Zayn danced around like a jerk. And I just thought this was a nice little touch. This will be a way for Kevin Owens to stay pissed at Sami. He disrespected him. He was dancing like over his corpse. It was mildly entertaining. And if that's the only reason they're going to have to fight again, then I guess it's a little lame, but I just thought it was pretty funny, right? It made me laugh. Sami Zayn's so happy to see Kevin Owens get into such pain and into such a shitty position that he had to do some dancing. So that was just fine with me. Kayla Braxton interviewed Paul Heyman, asking if he would let her know whether or not Roman Reigns is accepting Cesaro's challenge. He then went on praising Cesaro, as I was hoping that he would. That's how I thought they were going to come at this in the first place. Maybe they took my advice. Maybe they didn't. Anyway, he praised Cesaro, talked about how great he was, but promised Roman's going to answer the question later on tonight. Big tease, Paul Heyman, and on we go. We go back to the new promo bot in the back. I don't know what her name is, but she's the new girl in town, and she's interviewing Apollo Crews, who's standing outside his locker room bragging about retaining the Intercontinental Championship in the match tonight. He left Yabba Dabba in the locker room, and all of a sudden Big E comes out and beats the snot out of him. Then they pull Big E away before Yabba Dabba can come out and save his man, so he was pretty ineffective tonight as a bodyguard, and he should be up for some ramifications, if you ask me. If I were a prince and my bodyguard failed me, he's going to be in some deep shit come tomorrow morning. But we'll have to wait and see. Then probably one of the more interesting things that happened on the night, we had the return of Aleister Black. Aleister Black being taken more seriously, I guess, given more of that darker edge. In NXT, you would remember Aleister was the silent type, right? He was just that silent guy in the dark. He wasn't a man of many words, and he just went out there and kicked your fucking face off. But now they're giving him a little bit more of a character. He's sitting surrounded by the candles, which is a familiar sight, but he's reading from the Book of the Dark Father, or Tales of the Dark Father, I believe the book said. And it was interesting. And it was accompanied by this really, really entertaining animatic that looked great. It's nothing like we've ever really seen the WWE do before, especially as it pertains to vignettes. This was a really great little animated short that was explaining what Aleister Black was reading from the Tales of the Dark Father, which had Chapter 1, The Dragon, and then he narrated it. It told a story of a young boy whose father took him to rituals in which he would have to face life and death, and the boy's father was cold and he was distant, and he didn't learn to slay the dragon. Instead, he had to learn to become the dragon. And then he went off into ripping into us fans, telling us that we are the monsters, and it was really interesting. It was really different. It was kind of weird. It was kind of on par with what they were doing with The Fiend. And it'll be interesting to see where they go with this. Is he going to start some sort of a faction off the back of this? Is he going to be this one-man crusade? I hope it doesn't start going along the lines of that Seth Rollins Messiah type character, which he's still kind of doing with the Embrace Division and all that shit. But I'm interested. And this is one of those times where there's really high potential and there's a really good chance they're going to screw this up as well. So we have to wait and see. The jury's still out, but I enjoyed it. I don't enjoy seeing the Dirty Dogs on SmackDown because I hate the fact that they're still tag team champions. Why they didn't just give it to the Street Profits so that they could be champs alongside Bianca Belair, I'll never understand it. Like, there's a time and a place for everything. I think now was the time to do that, but what do I know? I'm just a stupid mark like the rest of you guys. So Ziggler and Rude are in the back. They're talking about who they think's going to win the match tonight between the only other two tag teams in the tag team division. So we're going to see once again the Mysterios versus Alpha Academy. Rude and Ziggler picked the Alpha Academy thinking that they're going to win. This brought in the Street Profits because for some reason they think they still deserve a shot at the championships. They're like, oh, no, we're next in line. They're not going to be next in line. And then Rude and Ziggler were like, no, you got to get to the back of the line, pal. And for the first time in a long time, I actually agreed with these guys. And then all of a sudden, Bayley showed up. She took over. She started to talk some trash about the new women's champion, Bianca Belair. And this was funny because as she was going on and on and on, the tag team champions walked away, and the Street Profits member, Montez Ford, the husband of the women's champion, is what I was going to say there, is standing there with Bianca on speakerphone, telling her that, man, Bayley's got your name in her mouth tonight. And she was kind of listening in on what Bayley had to say and then said, you know what, I'm going to be right there. So then we went to commercial, and by the time we got back to commercial, Bianca was able to make it there. And now Montez Ford was suddenly out of the shot. So was the promo bot. She wasn't there anymore as well. And we had this little back and forth where Bianca was like, well, what do you got to say? You wouldn't say it to my face. And Bayley's like, sure, I would. And then she went on praising Bianca Belair, saying how great it was that she was the champion and how proud she was and how she's proud to be the first championship match for Bianca Belair coming out of WrestleMania. And then we come back again and, Bayley walks away and then comes back laughing in the face of Bianca Belair. It could have been better. It also could have been worse. And it definitely is cementing us on this course of Bayley versus Bianca for the championship at WrestleMania Backlash, which we're just going to call Backlash because there's nothing WrestleMania about it. Ray and Dominic, Tiny Dad and Giant Man Baby Son, taking on Chad Gable and Otis, the Alpha Academy. Again, Rey Mysterio and his son won. So they're maybe, and they keep talking about it on commentary as well. There's never been a father-son tag team championship duo in the history of WWE. So is that what you're doing? So let's just get to it. All right. How many times do we have to see them beat the Alpha Academy? Do we have to see them beat the Street Profits? Are we going to just keep doing this? There's only 4 teams. The Mysterios won. Give them the opportunity and get it over with. And either give them the belts and make the history and move forward, or don't. And take Dolph and the other one and have them fight the Raw Tag Team Champions whenever they decide to come back to television and unify the titles. That's the only answer. Put the tag team division on one show, unify the titles, and that's it. Do that for Raw. You have 3 hours. So you have time to have one division exclusively on that show. And you could build the tag team division there. And leave SmackDown without a tag team division. You don't need it. If you're only going to have 4 tag teams, it's never going to be interesting. It's never going to feel legit. Nobody's ever going to care. Because 50-50 booking is usually what we get for the most part. The weirdest thing about this was, as Rey Mysterio and Dominic left, Cesaro was entering. I guess they were running short on time, so they had to do that thing where they cross paths in entrance, on the entrance ramp, and whatever. We had Cesaro and Daniel Bryan come back out to the ring. They continued to call out the Universal Champion, Roman Reigns, looking for the answer. Roman finally comes out with Jey Uso and Paul Heyman. He got right into Cesaro's face. He was mad at Cesaro for even thinking that he's in his league, and he turned him down. He said, the answer is no. The answer is always going to be no. But then he turned his attention to Daniel Bryan. He said, you know what? The champion makes the challenges around here. And the challenge goes to you. Because he hates Daniel Bryan. Roman despises Daniel Bryan. And he just wants to be done with Daniel Bryan. So, he challenges Daniel Bryan to a Universal title match for next week's episode of SmackDown. But this is not going to just be a normal title match, because Roman added the stipulation that when Daniel Bryan loses to him, he has to leave SmackDown forever. He will be banished from the Blue brand, leaving Daniel Bryan's fate hanging in the balance. After a momentary stare down between Bryan and Cesaro, Cesaro gave him his blessing. He told Daniel, listen, you have to do this. You have to take it. This is your shot. You take it. And so Daniel Bryan accepted. And now we have this match. And Michael Cole and Pat McAfee were putting it over as if Daniel Bryan's career is on the line. And we all know that Daniel Bryan's contract is going to be expiring soon. Maybe this is where they're going to go to write him off TV and then have him retire off into the sunset. Maybe this is going to be a way to move Daniel Bryan to the Red brand. I don't know whether or not that would be a good thing or maybe Daniel's just gonna transition back into an agent type of role, maybe do producing in the back and be off camera and allow him to focus on getting the new talent over. Whatever Daniel Bryan's future may be, it's hanging in the balance. Nobody knows right now, because at this time next week, we could be sitting here saying Daniel Bryan is the new Universal Champion. And we also could be saying goodbye to Daniel Bryan once and for all. That's some heavy stakes. That's a huge reason to tune into that match, because it effectively could be Daniel Bryan's last match in the WWE forever. It's a good way to hook you in. And even if it's not true, you don't want to be the one that missed it if it turns out to be true. It's going to be an interesting week next week. 2 huge championship matchups. Big E's just getting his championship rematch against Apollo Crews next week. Okay, why they're not holding that off for the pay-per-view, I don't know. Same thing here. You would think that Roman Reigns and Daniel Bryan would be pushed towards the pay-per-view. This way Daniel could, really get himself over in the next couple of weeks leading into the match, making it even more dramatic when he doesn't win, because I really, really doubt Roman Reigns is going to be parted from that belt anytime soon. And that was it. That was SmackDown tonight. It doesn't sound that great when we go up and down the card, really, but the in-ring action, especially in the opening tag team match, and Apollo Crews versus Kevin Owens, there was some really great wrestling. It was a really shit finish. The tag match, it was what it was. It was your standard WWE tag division match. The women's tag team situation is a hot mess, as always, probably the worst part of the show. And we have the new debut of this all-new, very weird, very cryptic Aleister Black, along with some fun little cartoons, which just really got me intrigued and looking forward to seeing what we're going to hear next from Aleister Black. So as you can see, some ups, some downs. That's another show with another guy, but it is what it is, just like the roller coaster ride of the WWE every single week. At least there were some positives in this show, unlike Monday Night Raw, which is the worst fucking show on television. And if you missed the hammering of Monday Night Raw, it will be linked in the annotations up above. Go check out the Monday Night Raw review as soon as we are finished here, which is going to be in just a couple of moments, because it's time to do the closing salvo. Thank you guys all so very much for continuing to support this channel. If you are new here, now would be the time for you to hit that subscribe button, become a Sledgehead of Sledge Nation officially by joining the club. Let's get this channel over 3,000 subscribers as soon as we possibly can, and to do that, I need each and every one of you. You could also support the channel by hitting that thumbs up. Super chats are open in the live chat on the side for the premiere, as we like to do when we drop a review of WWE. And also share this video with each and every one of your wrestling buddies all over the wrestling world, especially if they need a place to come and talk some shit about pro wrestling, because that's pretty much what we do, because that's all they give us, and that's why we have a poop hammer to drop on Vince McMahon's ridiculous head every Monday and every Friday. Even when we have some good action, there's always something wrong with SmackDown. My name is Nick Nightmare. This is the team Thor the Sledgehammer, the official Sledgehammer of the Sledgehammer Wrestling Show. His tag team partner, the World Heavyweight Champion of all the microphones in all the world, Blue the Yeti microphone. He's fucking awesome, and so are each and every one of you guys. You are the most important member of this team, and I love you all so very much. If you missed anything, it'll be linked up above, and don't forget to be here Monday night as the hammer comes down on Monday Night Raw. Thank you all so very much. That's going to do it. We are out of here. We will see you next time right here on your new favorite wrestling show, the Sledgehammer Wrestling Show, only on Sledgehammer TV, right here on YouTube.com. Boom.
Thanks, Vince. Oh.